It's 6 o'clock and I will call the meeting to order. I'm Lisa Sanders and I'm here. We have Penny Benelli and Henshaw. Shana. Hi, Shana.
Hi,
Shana-
I'm on virtual.
Yep. Shana Kalnitsky online, Caitlin Miller, Peyton Murphy, Jonathan Nichols, Lois Perla, Michael Ripley, Jerry Yusi, and Adrian Williams. Full house. Okay, so we're starting with the approval of agenda as usual, but I would like to suggest something a little bit different. Which is given how much there is to cover and that we haven't been able to catch up. We could approve the entire agenda tonight, but after getting through whichever portion we decide to get to, schedule what's called an adjournment meeting. So that adjournment meeting is just a time where we have to have a date and time and place. We come back together and we continue going through items on the agenda. So we don't have a new agenda. It would only be what had already been covered. It's still the case that things could be added with a 3/4 vote, 2/3 vote. 2/3. So if that is something you'd like to consider, we should do that before any sort of additions and deletions, because we would want to know whether we were adding or deleting from this meeting or the adjournment meeting. So we could take a vote on, do we want to have an adjournment meeting and then talk scheduling? Or is there just, let's talk scheduling, and because people are mostly on board with that, and then we could just have a vote on, is that our set adjournment?
I'm not real sure what that last part was.
Sorry. So we could do two separate votes. If we're not fairly confident that we want to do this adjournment meeting, we could have a motion. I propose that we schedule an adjournment meeting, vote on that. And then if we are having one, figure out the date and time for it. Or we could do that all as one package.
But if we do the adjournment meetings, this is the only agenda that we have?
Correct. As you'll see on this agenda, thinking this might happen, there's what's showing up as 9, adjourn to set date and time.
Right.
So that would split the things that are after that into that next meeting.
And if we want to add something to that today, do we have to have a 2/3 vote on it today?
Nope. So before the agenda has passed, it's a majority to add something to the agenda.
Or do we have to ask now?
Correct.
To add?
Correct. But once we know whether we're doing an adjournment meeting and when that is, but before we actually approve the agenda and vote on it.
Okay, so what if, based on tonight's meeting, we want to add something to the next meeting? When do we have to do that?
That would require a 2/3 vote.
When would that vote happen?
Whenever you are making the request to add an item to the agenda.
But the request can be made between the two meetings anytime, right? Like there was a request made to add something to the agenda for tonight.
That was, if it's far enough in advance that the meeting is.
Right, right. So we still could, how would we have a 2/3 vote then?
We would not be able to vote until we were in session.
Okay, so okay.
So, what I am suggesting is that we schedule an adjournment meeting for 1 week from tonight. So that would be May 28th at 6 p.m. Is there a motion to schedule an adjournment meeting for May 28th at 6 p.m.?
I'll make said motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So that was Mike Ripley who moved and Caitlin Miller who seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have an adjournment meeting set for next week. What that means now is for any additions or deletions to the agenda, you should specify whether it's for tonight's meeting or the meeting on the 28th. So,
Oh, sorry. We have to make that now? Well, okay. I understand. I thank you. I think I get it. I'm not used to this, but yeah, I understand that.
so I move to add an item to the agenda under new business for the adjournment meeting. That will be on the 28th. That is for the board to consider approving the Apple equipment lease. Is there a second for that?
Okay.
That was seconded by Penny. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll be adding that under new business for the adjournment. Second, I move that we add an item to the agenda under old business for the adjournment meeting, so this would be next week. To consider the recommendations of the co-curricular subcommittee. So after negotiations with the association, one piece of business that was left over were the stipends for co-curricular activities. That includes sports, but also all the other various activities. So one Green Mountain board member, myself, and one Ludlow Mount Holly board member have been meeting with the association to work out a proposal. This would be bringing the proposal to. Is there a second for that? Great, Lois is seconding that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's all that I had. Are there any other additions or deletions for the agenda?
Is a correction. The future meeting has it June 18th, which is Juneteenth.
So that is June 18th.
So,
Yeah, the 18th.
Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of this adjournment meeting on May 28th, the addition of the Apple lease discussion and the co-curricular discussion for the 28th? So moved. That was moved by Lois
I'll second it.
and seconded by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an approved agenda. The next piece under approval of minutes is for the board to be giving just clear instruction for how we are wanting the drafts of the minutes created. So we have a few different versions to work through in here. If Sophie has ideas or thoughts on that, is she? Okay. So for example, the most recent meetings are those minutes of the type that the board is happy with.
Do we want full names or at least last names or How do we, is it clear?
Yeah, I think having full names so that we can keep track of who's in there would be a good idea.
How do we feel about correct names in the public? Like correct, like I noticed that a couple, some of them, and it's hard to hear. It's that the kind of thing where we just like, we're okay with it as we kind of know, or do we want to ask that we go by the sign-in sheet, make sure the names are correct?
That's up sheet.
Is to go by the sign up sheet. Okay, so for people who are present at the meeting, we will confirm correct names based on the sign up sheet. For people who are speaking online, we can ask them to state or spell their name as needed. That seems like a good idea.
I know that the latest meetings have been, the minutes are long and they're very detailed. But if you miss a meeting, you're able to read those. It really does fill in. If they're made from the recording, I don't see any problem with reading it that way.
I could go like more than less. But
Yeah.
there's a video.
The videos don't lie.
It's interestingly enough, because it'll come up later, the recordings only have to stay up for 30 days. Oh, for VSA. Not that anyone would be taking them down, but it is.
Right, it makes it that much more important that the written minutes are.
They can be requested.
I
Okay,
think we just have to be sure they weren't being.
so it sounds like our instructions for the minutes are that we're asking for the fuller version. You know, it's certainly not word for word, but it is covering all of the pieces of the discussion, not simply stating that a discussion happened. That we are asking that full names be used for people in general, and that one way to get the correct full names of non-board members is to use the sign-up sheet. That way we have track of who has spoken, and that online we can be, I can help to make sure we're asking people to state their names and spell them if needed. Anything else with the instructions? That's good. Okay. I think there are some corrections and issues with some of the meetings, some of the minutes, so let's take them one by one. So first, we have the March 19th, 2026 minutes. One correction I note is it currently says that Adrian Williams was appointed to the TRSU board. Adrian declined that nomination and I was appointed to the TRSU board.
Under public comments, number 3, Ed Grossman endorsed Ann Henshaw for a board seat not set.
Any other corrections for the March 19th minutes? Okay, is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
That was Lois moved to approve with those 2 corrections. And Anne seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And so those minutes are approved with those 2 corrections. Next, we have the March 26th minutes, which was a special meeting. Any corrections or a motion to approve as is?
I'll move to approve.
That was Lois. Is there a second?
Also, that,
And Michael seconded. This is for approving the minutes for the March 26th special meeting. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Sorry, Shayna, I keep cutting you off. Okay, so those minutes are approved as well.
I can't always get to my mute button fast enough.
Next, we have the March 31st special meeting minutes.
Under new business. Under V. It says Mr. Goosey cannot fill budget. I don't think that's correct. If we do not, I don't know what word you use, Jerry, but. Doesn't,
under new business.
yeah, number one, it says B, number one.
Not sales budget if we not.
Contracts we need to.
Cannot fill budget.
I definitely didn't say.
So it just doesn't make sense the way it's written, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that one, can we say approve the minutes corrected based on video review?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lois. Any other corrections there? And is there a motion to approve? This is Penny who's moving to approve the March 31st special meeting minutes with the correction under 5B1 about what Mr. Hughes said. Any discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? Yes. So Penny made that motion
I'll second.
and Lois has now seconded. So let's take that again. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Now we have approved those March 31st minutes. Okay, April 13th, special meeting minutes. Anything or a motion to approve?
If anything, I'll make a motion to approve them as written.
Okay, that's Michael Ripley who moved to approve. Second. And Anne who seconded that one, just beating Barry.
I think Jerry beat
second. All in any discussion? All in favor
Hi.
and any opposed? Okay, we have the April 13th minute meetings. Next, we have the April 16th regular meeting minutes.
I've got some corrections for that. I don't know if you want an answer sometime. I've wanted them to pass out, but a summary of it is. I think the current draft minutes failed to give a true indication of the discussion because they captured only 2 of the 6 board members who substantially engaged in the deliberation. And I have my proposed amendment. Proposed minute amendment, if you want me to pass them out or read them out, or they're. It's in the interest of time, it's up to you. To pass them down.
So what would we like to do? We can also postpone this until these particular minutes until next, when we all have time to read
Like put it in the
those.
board, in like the board packet,
Mhm.
right ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like,
Is that
Just
the preferred?
email it to.
great.
So we are tabling approval of the 18th of the minutes for April 16th. Right? Excellent. And then we have the May 5th budget revote informational meeting. Is there a motion to approve that one?
So move.
Great, Penny has moved to approve that one as is,
Seconded.
and Anne has seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved as well. Would that bring this to our first public comment? And, okay, thank you. So we're getting the sign up sheet up.
Would you like me to pull this? Sure.
Yeah, fill it out and then, please do make sure you get your name on there and your town. But it's fine to do it as you come up to the speak rather than beforehand.
All right, my name is Brett. I teach at Green Mountain. I sent you all an email earlier this week regarding building temperature. And I guess I'm just wondering if any board members that shared my email about building temperature with the public, which then made its way to Facebook, care to explain why they feel it's appropriate to publicly share emails that are sent to them. Okay. I'm not here to discuss the conditions, but I am curious if this is how board members intend to operate. That when an issue is brought to you, one that has been brought to admin for years, we can expect members to pass it on to the public where it can be exploited and paired with unrelated misinformation online. This board has spent many hours protecting a mascot that violated state law and hours more discussing symbols of diversity and inclusion that offend them. Yet when there are concerns on classroom conditions, issues that actually affect testing scores, enrollment, and overall climate gets passed around to be trolled online. With reference to the glycol issue, I wasn't the only teacher that submitted a concern to Vermont OSHA, but I may have been the only one to click I was willing for my employer to know that I submitted it. That's because I don't fear discussion or hide behind being anonymous, unlike whichever board member shared my email. If you find yourself spending more time concerned that an issue was raised than solving that issue, then perhaps the public sector isn't for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Beverly Hart. Obviously, some of you already know me. I was here a couple years ago asking for help and I'm back. I need more help. I was here regarding my granddaughter Honoré, and I'm back again regarding my granddaughter Honoré. Couple years is a long time to have to come back with problems again with no results. I met with NAACP people, my family, Honoré, Superintendent Millington, principals, and we left there with very little concern, felt that there was very little concern for us. We addressed some things, never got any response. So we're back again asking for help. You know, there was an incident on the bus where the N-word was written on the bus years ago. And we found out in the fall of this year that someone came to us and told us it was still written on the bus. 2 years later, that's not acceptable. And the other thing is, not only is it not acceptable, but I want you to put yourself in my granddaughter's position. What do you think that made her feel like? Not very good. Not very good. The other thing is, there's been other incidents that's happened through the year that has not been taken care of properly. Protocols weren't followed properly. We're here asking for help. This has had a huge effect on my family, all of us. And the other thing is, my family is in the 40th year of donating a scholarship to this school and graduating student in honor of my brother. 40 years. We have supported this school. I'm asking for help. And I'm going to say, I'm going to say it right now. I don't want to have to come back again. I want help. And here's Honore. She wants to talk too.
I'm Honore. And I want to say I was really disappointed in October when we had came to the superintendent for help with the soccer incident where protocol wasn't taken for a head injury. And it's how he made it seem like he was going to take care of it and how we would go over it and it never happened. Nothing seems, you seemed like you were going to fix it and it never happened at all. And it's really disappointing to sit there and be told and then just be like lied to straight to your face.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Gannon. I actually live in Winchester, New Hampshire. I always feel like I have to say that when I'm in Vermont spaces, but all my work, professional work, is in the state of Vermont. I am one of the vice presidents for the NAACP Wyndham County branch. And I've been working with school boards across the state of Vermont, northern New England, around issues of school culture and climate for about 30 years. So it's something that I'm super passionate about. And some of that work is paid, but my presence here tonight with you is part of my volunteer work and my organizing work, because I care deeply about what's happening to this family and to some of the other students in our district, in this district. Just to be super transparent, I also do training through the Human Rights Commission, which is an organization in the state of Vermont where many of our families who are experiencing ongoing racial discrimination or discrimination of any kind because of the public accommodation that public schools fall under, who can come forward when they feel like there is not a response happening from the district. And unfortunately, we're seeing a significant uptick in the number of families who are coming forward. So I come here tonight for a couple different reasons. One is I have an ongoing relationship with this district, and some of you may know this or some of you may not, but in 2010, 2012, which was before probably many of the elected officials as well as hired officials who are here tonight, Green Mountain Union High School was under a consent decree with the Human Rights Commission for an ongoing racial harassment case with a family, a local family whose children went to school here. So this is something that this district has been struggling and wrestling with for a long time. And you're not unique to what is happening across the state. So I really want to say out front that what's the challenges that are being shared here with you tonight are also ones that are happening across the state. And our work is trying to understand better why that's happening and to try and support people who are in positions of leadership in schools, parents, community members, students, and staff to figure out how to create school culture and school environments where all people, students, staff, and community members can bring their full selves and feel like they're included and that they belong in that community. So I want to say out front that the language that I use tonight in ongoing conversations with you all is really around school culture and these ideas of belonging. It's not just around race or gender or disability, though a lot of the cases we see now in the state are specifically connected to those particular identity groups. My relationship with this family, who I consider part of my family, dates back to when Honore was an 8th grader, and they reached out to the NAACP because they were having ongoing challenges with not getting a response or feeling like that the concerns that they were bringing were really being responded to. So I'm here tonight to offer an invitation to this board, but also to this school community. Which is what I do when I speak in front of boards and public comment. And the invitation is to welcome you into a deeper conversation about how do you build positive school culture? What are some of the things that are already happening here? Because I know there are good initiatives happening here, and I know there are good, I know there are staff and adults who really care about kids and are trying to figure that out. But what does that mean when we also know that there's ongoing issues of harassment or policies that are not followed by a particular procedure, which I was reading through the website tonight with all the school districts here, that there is a particular procedure for how these things are supposed to happen. And what I'm understanding is that some of that hasn't. We know that in Vermont right now, the statewide issue of education is the Education Transformation Bill, right? Act 73, HB 955, whatever it is now, is what people are focused on. And what I say to districts and to superintendents and other people in positions of power is that issues of school culture and climate are directly connected to what is happening in education transformation. So if we don't understand that if mergers happen because the governor decides he's going to push forced mergers, even if there's voluntary mergers, even if we just have to decide that school districts have to combine, that we are going to see more challenges for our kids around how they feel a sense of belonging. Right? So I really want to say, because I know what's on the forefront for most folks right now is 73 and 955, but we have work to do around how we understand the relationship between those school culture and climate. I will also say to you in closing, this is not just work that is focused on issues of hate crimes or racism or disability harassment. This is work that's good for everybody. Everybody benefits in a school district when everybody feels like they can bring their full selves. So I want to say that clearly. This is not just about special privileges or special training for particularly historically marginalized groups, though we know they are most impacted, but everybody does better when everybody feels like they can be part of it. So an invitation to you all to consider having me come back and do a longer presentation. I'd be happy to do that. Thanks for the time, Lisa.
You do professional development with teachers?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Can we connect it or can I get a car? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have not moved on. Thank you.
Oh, somebody on something.
Robert Reed from the town of Chester. I was at the meeting when the superintendent first suggested that the board should consider a flag policy. He also suggested consideration be given to a broader policy that could impact materials displayed in the classrooms. The superintendent acknowledged that targeting specific materials could create legal issues, which is certainly true, and suggested a possible workaround, which essentially meant banning materials in the classroom that are not related to curriculum. I would like to speak directly to the suggested workaround and the relation between curricula and the well-being of students, particularly LGBT students, who are estimated to represent 16% of the adolescent population of the United States. Green Mountain schools teach world history, as they should. They likely cover World War II and the rise of fascism in Europe and the Holocaust. Between 1933 and 1945, roughly 100,000 men were arrested for being gay and were made to wear pink stars. Approximately 65,000 of those men died. Many were executed. Green Mountain School teaches American history, as they should. They likely cover the history of the Americas, which includes indigenous people. Multiple tribes, including the Navajo, Zuni, and Vermont's own Abenaki, recognize and even venerate people called Two-Spirits, and they still do today. The Two-Spirit people are transgender and non-binary. The Two-Spirit people were often consulted by tribe elders because of their unique perspective on human nature and culture. The Abenaki have also enshrined LGBT rights in tribal charters. That is American history. Green Mountain School teaches Vermont history, as it should. and will likely point out that Vermont was the first state to codify same-sex civil unions in 2000 and the first state to legalize same-sex marriage through legislation in 2009. Under Vermont law, gender identity is protected and it allows self-identification on legal documents. Discrimination by healthcare providers based on gender is illegal. Gender affirming in healthcare is protected. In 2022, voters passed the Reproductive Liberty Amendment, enshrining both reproductive autonomy for women and gender affirming care for transgender people in the state constitution. That is Vermont history. If Green Mountain Schools discuss history, anthropology, science, civil rights, pop culture, current events, language, art, music, psychology, sports, medicine, or health, they are discussing subjects that include the influence, participation, and struggles of gay, lesbian, transgender, intersex, and non-binary people. To suggest that materials that recognize the LGBT plus community in a classroom are not related to curricula is frankly intellectually dishonest and unfair to all students, especially to the percentage of our students who identify with that community. The only way to separate curricula from LGBTQ plus issues is to censor the curricula, which is antithetical to the very idea of education. I ask this board to reject any effort to remove or ban inclusive materials in the classroom and to affirm its commitment to safe and welcoming school environments and to the importance of honest and uncensored education. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have something. I'm not able to raise my hand.
Yeah, thank you, Zachary. Go ahead.
I just want to bring up in discussion. My fiance sent an email to the board today regarding the 8th grade science teacher, Brett. I believe he's actually there. And how he's harassing my son, Dylan McGuire, by calling him a redneck, hillbilly. I mean, as a Vermonter, I feel that's racist. I can continue on. You know, he has asked, what Dylan wants to do for a profession, who he's going to work for. And then to say, oh, I guess I know not to hire that company because of your lack of intelligence. That to me is bullying as a teacher. And I think that my son should feel equal when he goes into that classroom. He should not feel like he's, an outcast. And that's how he feels right now. And of course, as Green Mountain always does, they took the easy way out. And they took my kid out of the class for the year, so now he doesn't learn science for the rest of the year. I feel like these students should feel all equal. The teachers should be doing their jobs, not taking the easy way out like they always do. And they should be there to help the students and not pick them apart and antagonize them. So I would like to see something done about this. And I think it was Lisa Sanders is the one that said that there's nothing that can be done. But I think there is something that could be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to discuss it if people want to, but
Point of order.
Thank you.
I'm Nick Volk, and I live in Chester, and I am not as articulate as Robert was, or as this family and you were. But I think among the most important things a good school does is it trusts its teachers to bring themselves into the world that they are bringing the kids to. So the whole flags thing, all that sort of thing, nah. Every classroom should look dramatically different. Every classroom should be built by the teacher and the students who come to it. Please don't get caught up in that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment in the room? or online? Oh, please.
So as I sat here as a community member with no intention of speaking, I was very moved and intrigued by what I was hearing other community members speak to. Could you just state your name, please? Ann Manchester. And the question that came to me and has come to me in past meetings that I've come to, and as I listen to the conversation and honestly see the interaction that occurs between board members, which doesn't always seem incredibly positive, I asked myself, don't you want to be better? Don't you want our school to be better? Don't you want our community to be better? Don't you want our educational system to be better? And if your answer is yes, then ask yourself how? How can we do it different? How can we grow? How can we move out of the past and into the future of acceptance and inclusion? How do we teach our children that they can be their best selves by supporting them for who they are and what they believe in? The job here is to guide. If you have sat at this table as a board member and have been finding excuses as to why things haven't been addressed, or putting the blame back on the person who is up and speaking, then this is probably not the seat you should be sitting in. Because this is for the community, this is for our future, and things have got to change, and we can be better. You can be better. This whole school district can be better. But it's up to all of us to work together to make those changes and respect one another. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Checking again, in the room or online. Okay. So that will wrap up our first public comment for tonight. Thank you all for being here and for sharing. It moves us to administrative reports. So as you know, the GMUSD budget passed. And so the reduction in force notices are no longer under consideration. Do we not have student presentations tonight?
We don't have them tonight. They approached me today. They do take them very seriously, those students, and they were worried about academic. Laura, actually, if I could just read what Laura wrote for me on behalf of both of them. Laura and Izzy Isadora. She said, happenings around GM. The YES program is in the near future and offering our student body year-round opportunity to learn through fun-filled programs of their choice. Prom was very well attended and all students had a wonderful time. Spring sports are going very well. IXL testing was this week and now completed, and it offers a snapshot of our school's academic status. We'd like to apologize for not being able to attend. Our year end is quite busy and the time is currently vital for our academic success while we complete our classes in school year. We hope Mr. Broadley does a fine job in our absence. Communicating the happening around the go Mr. Broadley. That part really makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I had to read that. But they represent a lot of us, all of us students, and you couldn't ask for better.
You have the written superintendent's report. Are there any questions about that? And we have written principals reports from Green Mountain, CAS and CTS. Any questions about those? And thank you all for being here. Okay. We have a written facility report. Todd is also here. Any questions for him about facilities pieces?
I've got a little update if you want to take a couple minutes. I know it doesn't say anything. So we have some movement on the PCB front. I talked to Craig today. This will be, more than chaotic. This summer. But there is a $3 million project in the county that with no effect on taxpayers directly here in Chester, coming from the state, and an additional $300,000 for long-term testing. So that's something that Wayne and I had talked to them about. So it didn't have an effect on taxpayers as things moved on. So there's gonna be a lot going on through the whole building, but especially on the third floor. And your boiler project is moving ahead. We had an owners meeting and that's gonna start before school itself. So the other schools, there's some movement with FEMA, actually in the right direction. Where we've enlisted some help from a structural engineer for some different options that's moving forward. The state's actually helping us with that a little bit, with some, maybe some possible funding from some other places. So, all good news, nothing to report from Cavendish. All good news on the facility side.
Are you going to be here for the January 2nd report on the PCBs?
January 2nd?
I'm sorry, June 2nd.
June 2nd, yes, I will. Yeah, and an informational meeting on June 2nd for the public, which is, we have to do.
Right.
We have to do that. But yes, I will.
You do a good job of explaining.
So,
Thank
and
you.
Craig will be here. So Craig from Turner will be here. Craig is very knowledgeable, but sometimes I have a hard time following him as well, but he is very knowledgeable and he's very good at what he does, but he'll be spearheading this project. Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
We have a written curriculums report as well, and then we have written financial report. Are there any questions on either of those? Okay.
I don't have any questions about the reports, but I do have a suggestion, something I'd like to see in the reports from the various principals. And that is what events have happened at their school that have been reported to them by parents. I mean, for instance, the incidents that happened here, the bullying that was reported. And I don't know if this is happening in other schools. Much of it's happening in any of the schools. And I think it would be something that the board should know. And it's something that principals could include in their monthly report. Because they could say, no reports this week, no incidents of harassment, hazing, bullying, or some other form of abuse. In other words, some kind of complaint were reported to us. Or yes, we had 2 incidences and they concerned this type of subject. They don't have to go into a lot of detail. I'm not asking to put students' names or go into great detail, but I think that it would be important for us to know what's happening around the district, if anything, on these topics. And it would be easy for them to put it into the report.
I know that there'll be directions on like what can be reported and shared publicly, but some sort of summary information that is legally permitted is something you could.
The existence of the incident is not secret. It's the student's name that you wouldn't want to put in. And you wouldn't want to say it was student X or
But
student
if
Y.
there's
You
an
don't want to put
investigation,
names.
we gotta kind of be careful because that's.
Of course, but the existence of the incident is not secret. So I'm not asking to use protected information. Absolutely, we're not allowed to do that. But to say that there were 2 reports of X or whatever, something like that, just so we have some information. Because I've been looking for that and can't find it.
We'd also have to.
There's really no record of it.
We'd also have to abide by policy governance versus, what our lane is in policy governance and also Probably seems like a conversation that would be more like something that should be put on the well thought out.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, really.
So let's put that towards potential addition to future.
Yep, I have no problem with that. I just wanted to raise the issue today. Thanks.
We used to get disciplinary, numbers, right?
Yeah, like aggregate data.
Yeah, so like it would, yeah, okay, so I'm not. Basically it would say, you know, how many kids had in-school suspension or out-of-school suspensions. So we used to get something like that. With no, yeah, no identifying.
Right.
We used to get that.
Oh, good. And but we're not getting that now, so I don't think so. I didn't,
I'm not
I
seeing
think
it.
that was it.
What's that?
Is it something I need to like make a motion to put it on somewhere, or is it?
You don't, if we wanted to
Okay.
discuss it at the very next, at the adjournment meeting, then we would need a motion, but to have it on the following agenda. item. Okay. Great. All right, so going to unfinished business, the next major topic is this possible creation, what the membership would be and the charge of an elementary class size subcommittee. As part of starting that discussion, I wanted to clarify just a couple of things. So first of all, there is a restructuring committee in existence. But it is very much a Ludlow Mount Holly restructuring committee. And in fact, it's the Ludlow Mount Holly Community Committee. So the Ludlow Mount Holly School Board, over a year ago, or about a year ago, actually, coming out of budget difficulties, decided that they wanted a public committee, like a community committee, to be able to provide input to the board about possible reorganization within Ludlow and Mount Holly based on budget problems, and that they were hitting that maximum, called the excess spending limit. And that they weren't going to be able to do the same thing they had again for another year. So that committee does have two board members on it, one from Ludlow, one from Mount Holly. It also has teachers from Ludlow, one from Mount Holly. It has community members. It has parents. It is not entirely, like all of those positions aren't completely filled, but that's what that committee is. And so it exists because the Ludlow Mount Holly board asked them for their input, and it reports to the Ludlow Mount Holly board. And that's really it. So that board, and they don't have any decision making, they're not voting, they are gathering information from the community and providing it to the Ludlow Mount Holly. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And it might be a little premature to ask this, but has there ever been an idea or proposal to have a restructuring committee that TRSU, to where they pull from both districts in order to kind of work together and communicate? Is that something that's ever been discussed, or
Yes.
how'd that go? Did it?
Everyone was in favor of it.
Everyone was or was not? Was.
Yeah, and I think there is lots of opportunity.
And it was, it never.
Let's discuss them up before we should.
So there, as many of you know, there was also a survey sent out by three of the elementary school principals. So that was the Ludlow Mount Holly, the Ludlow principal, the Mount Holly principal, and the Cavendish principal to their community lists, which are mostly school families, but also some community members. I don't know exactly the membership of those lists. In that survey, it described being asked by the restructuring committee to send out that survey. The restructuring committee never asked for a survey and in fact said, do not do a survey. We think it's a bad idea.
Have evidence.
that is very close to that.
Okay, well, I watched both of the videos of the meetings and
Again, I think
Okay.
it's important to keep the record straight. There's been a lot of things that in the record that probably need to be corrected.
okay.
So this is one of the principals corresponding with one of the subcommittee chairs. You can see that I am not CC'd on this. You see the principal sending a copy of the potential survey, and you see the communications that go back and forth, and you see that in that potential survey, it also included a question about cabbage.
So can you just say again who this is from?
So this is communications back and forth between the Ludlow principal and one of the board chairs for the subcommittee. Again, the first piece is the survey that was created. They did include Cavendish in the questions, and the reason that it was being sent was for a review by the board chair. And then a discussion about, how it should go out, and who it should go out, and how to maximize kind of exposure. And again, this isn't meant to be anything other than making sure that the facts are straight. There are folks that seem to be implying that I had something to do with the survey going out to Cavendish, which I did not. And you will notice that I am not CC'd on this.
Pretty clear to me.
Yes, and I certainly didn't have any such implication, intend such an implication. During those restructuring committee meetings, there were statements to not send out a survey. And there was no request from that committee. And I think the chair of that restructuring committee would agree with me that she didn't have an understanding of the structure of the TRSU and the two districts. And so the survey did go to some Cavendish families. It was also posted on some social media. The input from people who indicated that they were from Cavendish was deleted or
after it was kind of brought to my attention and folks were upset about the fact that Cavendish had been included, I immediately reached out to the principals and the crew and said, hey, it's probably a good idea, especially since there hasn't been communication about this, to take out all the Cavendish data. So they did that before the survey was completed. So they do have data that's all.
And then the data from the Ludlow Mount Holly side was presented at the next Ludlow Mount Holly restructuring committee. So the discussion here is really kind of twofold. So Lane, did you have a specific invitation from this Ludlow Mount Holly restructuring committee?
They were hoping to have one Cavendish individual, if folks were willing, and the board was willing to be kind of a whole part or full member. But that was discussed a while ago, I think, before the survey.
I'm just also wondering how that works, because there's there is no Cavendish person who could represent all of Cavendish, the town, or all of and it is, if someone wants to do that, I don't think there's any problem with it, but the role would be well, and that committee is to provide input to the Ludlow Mount Holly School Board. It is not, right, it's not really a Green Mountain School District role. So I just kind of don't know how that would work. I think a TRSU restructuring committee meeting and go ahead, Shayna, sorry.
No, that's okay. I had question and comment. One was, I'm not sure why we're not doing any restructuring conversations as a TRSU. because I commend the Ludlow Mount Holly group for being proactive, and they've been very thorough in their considerations. However, some of the proposed solutions, while they might be efficient and potentially successful, also work at breaking up the Green Mountain School District and potentially leaving Chester Andover as the only elementary school in that district. What I could not find were the articles of agreement for the two districts, Green Mountain and Mount Holly coming together. You can't just, absorb a school from another school district and call it a day. There's a pretty lengthy process for that. And whatever decisions we're making to, meet the benefit of one school, we also have to keep into consideration the whole district.
Yeah, as far as I know and have been able to read from, have been able to find out from reading, the only way that the school districts can change or that schools can do something outside of their district is both for the town that school is in to request leaving the district they're in, and the town has to vote for that. And the towns of the district they are in have to vote to let that town go. And the town that they're moving into has to, or the district they're moving into has to vote.
Right, and that's why I think having the articles of agreement, be part of our board documents is very important. And the explanation of the origin of the Ludlow Mount Holly work was very helpful. But the optics for community members, both educators and families who live, work, attend Cavendish and Chester Andover, there have been a lot of questions why, things are being discussed that affect their kids, their jobs, their community. So even though it's not officially, a board thing, it looks very much like this is the school board acting on behalf of a school that's not actually in their district. So we have to be really careful about the work and the collaboration between the two entities.
Yeah, please.
It was a couple of months ago or a month ago where we talked about the fact that they had this committee and a couple of us said we'd like to go and listen in, and they invited us in to listen. They're just talking about this scenario, that scenario, whatever scenario, when they're trying to come up with all the different possible scenarios of what could possibly happen, what could possibly be, and what if scenarios, see what it would all look like. So they're looking at numbers and what would happen if Cavendish wanted to come? What would happen if this happened? What would happen? They're not drafting any plans and consolidating anything. They're just looking at what if, what would happen if. Would we have enough teachers, or what teachers would we need, or what would this happen, why would this, So, it's unfortunate that the survey got sent out to parents, because we got letters from people, and I had no idea what they were talking about, because I live in Cavendish and I did the survey, so I didn't know anything about it. So, they're just doing their due diligence of a what if scenario, they're not drafting anything that says they're gonna try to get a zoning effect. Last one, where they talked about with just consolidating at Ludlow and Mount Holly. They just have to figure out which school they think would fit best.
But they want to include Cavendish. They have to have.
They
This
didn't want
board's
to include
permission
Cavendish. We asked
to bring
permission to
that
go
up.
and just sit in, so we knew what they were talking about. They're
I
not
get it.
including Cavendish.
I get that. Just sitting in, you're not sitting in to make any decisions or be part of it, just to hear what's going on. But it was improper for them to include Cavendish. They can talk about Cavendish, but to send things to Cavendish.
That wasn't-
I agree, that wasn't
them sending it.
So
Yeah.
to me, the problem is that the Ludlow Mount Holly Restructuring Committee does not have authority to tell any school personnel
Right.
what to do.
Right.
And I don't think the committee claimed any such authority, but it was claimed to be the reason for such a thing happening. So I think just that clear communication of what is the committee charged with doing, and that is to report to the Ludlow Mount Holly School District, which could then make decisions about what they want to ask superintendent and therefore students to do. So I also think there are a couple of questions for this board. The Cavendish piece would be a Cavendish community piece that might or might not want any board members on it, but that would be really up to the town if they would want to pursue any sort of switching of districts. For the Green Mountain School Board, we could have a restructuring committee again. We did that for quite some time. But we could think about what that would be. Go ahead, Em.
Can I offer up again that it seems like going forward with what we have ahead of us in the next 1 to 2 years, that any type of redistricting and restructuring discussion would probably be centralized in some way, like kind of like a TRS, like a TRSU restructuring committee that has, like, I'm trying to see where that would be. I'm not sure that it would, in my perspective, because I feel like you need to pull from, it's a supervisory need, so I would, maybe TRS you can talk about the next meeting.
Yeah, and this board could say that. Please, TRSU, at the next meeting, talk about a supervisory wide.
Right.
Yeah. Is that something,
Right.
yeah. But actually, no one to make a note if it's like something worth making much, or just like, haven't thought about it.
They're kind of getting ahead of themselves anyway, because whatever the state does could immediately just eliminate whatever they've done
This is true.
so far.
This is true.
If they,
But it might be nice to have the structure set up.
well, but to do it in the context, I mean, we're either gonna have something really soon or we're gonna have a real crisis. Something's gonna happen soon in the legislature.
I guess maybe
We
just,
know, but that is.
I guess maybe us
coming
just
up.
moving away, I'd love to see us moving away from the mentality of over here, over here, over here, over here, and more of like, okay, this is something maybe we're gonna have to discuss and collaborate. And yeah, because other district and supervisor unions are, I'm very like, let's not do anything, I'm not spoken about that. I don't think 73 is clear, and this. But I don't think it's bad to be prepared, say, when it's time to talk, that maybe it should be more parties, stakeholders involved.
I agree, because
I
you're,
think it's a-
you are, okay, like, it makes more sense to have all parties that it potentially affects involved. Instead of us and them, because
Let's duplicate where.
they
more
can,
thing.
and yeah, and they have ideas that they can share that
Yeah.
might, make sense.
Yeah.
Less room for
That's-
misinterpretation.
Yep. Yeah, if we're all working for everything.
I can't talk about it. Yeah, it's just on my head.
So I can request that TRSU put this on the next agenda. I don't think we need a vote for that. And that there is a lot to learn from this Ludlow Mount Holly restructuring committee in terms of community stakeholders. Can be only board members, but it doesn't have to be. TRSU can also say, yes, it can come from people who are already on the TRSU board, but there might be a need for additional people as well. And so I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Anything more on that at this point? Thank you all. The next item of business is an update on the Green Mountain support staff negotiation. Is that you? Donovan?
If you want to take it away. So the next meeting is Tuesday, the 26th. There were a couple of meetings that have been missed. Proposals have been exchanged on both sides at this point in time, and the hope is that for the end of the year, they're able to get they're able to get an agreement, because if not, they're starting on. They're still, I won't say they're early, they're early in the middle of the process.
How's it going? So, I mean, I was at the last meeting, but apparently a lot has happened since, because the meeting got canceled. And now we're just meeting next week. Can you give us any kind of heads up of what to expect?
I don't think there's been enough of an exchange that folks are kind of whittling down to
Okay.
what is super important. I think there's a lot there, that folks are asking for, and I think there's good intent behind it. I think the desire is to try to get the Green Mountain contract for the support staff to match the logo on Holly. The closer they are, the easier it is for a lot of people, but problem is Ludlow Mount Holly's contract, what they're paying is up here. They can afford to do it because they have only a few folks, support staff, you need more on the Green Mountain side to do that, you know, you've got 10 times the number of people. So it magnifies what you're, even though salaries here, and I can say it on one.
Anthony, you were on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I noticed things were pretty far apart and I just wondered how, whether to get really closer. We'll keep working.
Right, thank you. One other piece of unfinished business for tonight's meeting is that initially after this board appointed 2 members for replacement, they were denied oath of office. Hand it over to you.
I'll pass this, just a statement, my statement on the issue of people like.
Sure.
On the day of our intent to take our oath of office, I was informed by Caitlin Miller, also I'm speaking for myself, not anyone else, that I was informed by Caitlin Miller that her oath had been denied and that mine likely would be as well. I contacted the town clerk and received confirmation that I would not be able to take the oath at that time because a concern had been brought to the clerk that my appointment and Caitlin Miller's appointment had been done incorrectly. I asked the town clerk to please explain the nature of the concern and to provide the legal authority or precedent that would allow my oath of office to be delayed or denied after my appointment. I was not provided that information at the time and was instead directed to follow up with the superintendent. I then contacted Superintendent Millington, who indicated he had not been aware of the situation, but also look into it. Later that day, I received an email informing me that I could in fact take the oath of office after all. I was told that the town clerk had contacted the Secretary of State's office and the Agency of Education and was waiting to hear back, but had decided to proceed with administering the oath. Later, I was informed that it was a fellow board member who had requested the oath be withheld. I was not provided the legal basis for delaying the oath. My concern is not a question, but my concern is not that a question was raised about the process. Questions about board procedure, appointment process, eligibility, or compliance should be taken seriously and handled through appropriate transparent channels. Per VSA, again, in my interpretation, this fellow board member should have raised the concern during the appointment process itself, made the objection in an open meeting, asked for the matter to be placed on a properly warned agenda, request legal review by board counsel or appropriate state guidance, and then use the courts if they believed I had no legal right to hold this office. My issue is that an undisclosed complaint or concern outside of an open meeting from another board member was initially treated as a basis to delay the oath of office for a duly elected or appointed member. That is a serious action. Delaying that step without clearly identifying the legal basis, the specific allegation, or the process being followed is a harmful precedent. Democratic bodies depend on equal treatment of their members, fair process, and respect for the legitimacy of appointments and elections. Not doing so risks losing public trust and community engagement. Public bodies have an obligation to conduct their work in a way that is lawful, accessible, and free from arbitrary or discriminatory barriers. That obligation includes protecting the right of newly elected or appointed members to assume office without delay, unless there is a clearly identified and implemented legal basis for both other. Please enter the statement in verbatim to the 5/21/26 GMUSD board meeting minutes. I still have not heard what the actual complaint was. I'm still curious. That's a mistake on the matter.
Yeah, and we can make sure that this does go into the minutes directly. So I don't actually know. I also do not know why the oath was refused. I know that the board voted and that appointment vote was recorded. And that at that point, there, like an individual board member cannot speak on behalf of the board as if the whole board had made a different decision. And if it was not a board member, if there is some other way for refusing the oath, then the town employees who are doing that are not fulfilling it.
It was an interesting day and I just wanted this in the record.
So I filed a complaint after the meeting, after I reviewed the meeting. Not because I didn't want you guys to be on the board, right? But I feel during the vote, it was a little messy and a little unclear. And multiple board members raised that concern during the vote as to whether we were following the process. I did file a complaint and I CC'd Lisa and the superintendent and the town clerk, because my concern was that if we move forward without being 100% solid in the way we appointed you guys, and you participate in a meeting and vote, that could open us up to legal liabilities, did not in fact do it the right way. I asked for clarification and that it be brought up on the agenda in a board meeting. And I was told by our board chair that could not happen. So for me, it was more procedural because during that, I was told that we didn't actually have to vote, but unfortunately during that process, we heard a motion that was never seconded. And the motion was to vote on a specific candidate, and then we followed through lumping all candidates in together. In my view, we did not do that properly. And that was my concern. I didn't raise it during the meeting because I wanted to review first, and there was no meeting in between the oath of office and me being able to bring it back to the board. So I brought it to the board chair.
Yep, and that complaint and your points are very welcome. And in the end, when the board certifies and announces an outcome of a vote or an election, that's really it. And that the time in which those objections need to be raised is before that. And that's hard. We've all made that mistake of I didn't catch it then. But we can't just delay putting people on the board because of that.
I didn't delay anything.
Right, but you asked for it to be delayed.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I asked for it to be brought to the board to discuss as a whole,
Mhm.
and I was denied.
Well, we most definitely can discuss it as a whole after they are appointed to the board.
I asked too that maybe we had legal weigh in on that, just to make sure that we did it properly. And I was basically told, no.
I have no objections to, if there's something you want to do. I'm not in charge. But I have no objections to.
It was a procedural thing. It wasn't a personal thing.
But with all due respect, there's no time when a simple board member has the right to challenge an official board action on his own or her own to the town.
Well, I'll let
There's never
our
that
legal
right.
department weigh in on that.
But it should.
I
Because that
agree.
was-
I
that-
agree, and that's what I
We,
asked for.
that's one thing that we've been new members have been getting training on this. And board members cannot go off on their own and act for the board.
I didn't.
And but you did. You stopped them from being.
I didn't stop.
Yeah, you
any-
did. Your
think-
complaint
I think
stopped.
maybe Jerry had a recommendation, and I think that the town clerk has a role in
Yeah.
following that or not. And I'm not taking a stance on that, but I do understand the difference. It was not just and if it was perceived as a directive, then that is important to know so that we stay clear away from that. But I do think there's a difference in sharing an opinion and it being taken by the direct, you know, and I think including the town clerk on that communication made it more confusing than it had. That's my.
I think something else that might have contributed, and it's important to think about intent versus impact. So what I hear Jerry saying is that he was wanting to be sure that there was correct procedure. It was not a personal or a person thing. And, you know, when we, the new board members came in, there was some ambiguity about some process even before, you know, we came to the table for the first time. And I know that the state had been contacted to render some interpretation or decision on the process of the board member seats. And I don't know if we ever got that clarification. But, you know, whether it's a board member or you're a community member, I think it is important that we make sure that processes are followed before we get ahead of ourselves.
But that has to be done when the process is going on, not after the fact.
Well, I think what Jerry was asking for and what I heard people asking for in my first meeting before the two seats were filled officially was that there was some questionable process about the previous board member vote on town meeting day. And there was a request from the state for guidance on whether or not it was done correctly or not, and how a ballot would be interpreted if the person at the top of the vote, you know, did not get the position, and do you go to the next one, the next two? And I think it was wise to ask for that clarification. So it wasn't really after the fact, it was still an ongoing situation. And the impact was it felt crappy to some people, and we have to make sure that it happens properly, especially those of us who are new and, you know, needing to learn some of these things.
Yeah, it did not feel great. You're right.
Yeah.
During that meeting, multiple board members raised it, and they were basically said, well, this is how it is. And this is what we're gonna do.
But the concerns that were raised, because I was there, the concerns that were raised were about the decision on how the vote counted. That was not up to this board. That had been made. The town clerk certifies the vote. The town clerk did that. And the town clerk said, this is the way the vote applies. And the fact that people from the board didn't like it is irrelevant.
What?
We don't have any
We're
control.
we're not talking
No,
about
yes, that was-
elected board members. We're talking about.
No, I'm talking
internal
about the
board members.
election, that was the problem. I was here. I remember that you didn't, not you personally, but there were several members who did not like the fact that when the winner of that position withdrew after the vote, said, I'm not going to take it, that the second person down didn't get it. Wasn't up to the board. That had nothing to do with board procedure. That is officials' elected procedure.
I think that's what Shayna was talking about
Yeah,
as well.
that was-
Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, Shayna, but was your confusion or concern about whether there were two positions to be appointed or whether someone had been elected to one of those positions?
I think there was definite confusion, and I heard it from the public comment as well. And I remember Lauren Fearman had said she had reached out for some confirmation, and I don't remember who else had said it. It might have been a board member. But it was really curiosity. Did we do this the right way? And I don't see it as a board, you know, wielding power against one individual or not. Procedure is really important, and it can still feel the way that Anne was just describing it. And I would not, want people making a blanket statement that, the board did this, the board doesn't have the power to do that. We have to not let our emotions interfere and make sure that we do follow procedure. So I was unclear when I came in the beginning and wanted to be sure that it would be done right.
What is the way forward, I guess? The way forward, like, how do we move forward on this?
I'll come to you next. So Jerry, would you like to go through all of the points on your complaint and
I was
have
just-
that discussion?
For me, when I spoke with you a little bit on the complaint side of it, procedurally, when we are filling an interim position as a board, the way you explained it to me was we didn't need to have a motion or a vote, that we could just do it, which I would be fine with. But when we're sitting around this table and the public is putting its faith in us to do things procedurally correct, and we use one process, right? Hearing a motion. If we hear a motion, we're doing it that way. We heard a motion about a specific candidate, we never got a second. And then the motion changed mid-motion from a specific individual to lumping in all the candidates for the interim position. My concern was, number one, that wasn't a proper motion. There was no second, and then the motion changed. That was it. I want to be sure that when we are doing that, if we don't need to hear a motion, don't hear a motion.
Yeah.
Because it confuses the public and the board as it did that night. And as soon as that motion went out, multiple board members were confused. And there was some back and forth with members in the public. And I just think if we're gonna follow a process, we need to be clear and concise about it. That way, the public and everyone who's put us at this table knows that we're doing it right.
Absolutely. And the piece that I went back to was the procedure that the board had voted on. And 100% misspoke, didn't know I was gonna be chairing anything that night. But we did follow the procedure that was voted on by the board previously. Which doesn't mean there was no confusion. Just real quick in Adrian's next. So is that something you would like to bring back and review?
I think it's important that we're all clear and on the same page, because it was clear that we weren't. So.
Adrian.
Jerry answered it. I wanted confusion about whether this was about the Jesse Bailey election or if this was about a procedural, because he had said there was a motion, no second, specific candidate, and I was just trying to keep notes. And it sounded like conflating issues, so, but
No, I'm definitely not at all about the Jesse. This is.
I just was making sure that we were having this in discussion, but I got the answer.
I'd like to say something here, and that is that filling vacancies on the board is governed by statute. And absolutely nowhere does it say that the board can just pick somebody they want without a vote. That does not exist. It's required that the board follow statutory procedure to fill vacancies. And I didn't bring all the statutes with me tonight, but frankly, this is the kind of thing we probably should deal with at our retreat or something. We should board development. I just heard from Jerry that you told him, and I'm not saying that you did, but that he understood that the board could just fill the vacancy without a vote, could just decide on somebody. That is not true. That is not in statute. Trust me. I'm not your lawyer, but I've read the statutes and that's not what they say. Well, I'm not, you just said that. It's not about it. Yeah, but not for me. And that's not, what I'm telling you is that's wrong.
Please, point of order.
Am I allowed to speak after point of order?
Yes, it needs to be about what that point is.
The point is, how do we move forward? Is there a plan or something we can do to move forward so Jerry, you feel,
I just answered.
okay, we answered again for me, so
I think we, as a board, need to review the process and make sure we're clear on exactly how we do it.
okay. Okay,
That's all I'm asking. And that's all I was asking for that night.
is that something we can put on the agenda where we discuss appointment procedure?
Yes, that's. Yeah, and we have an adopted policy, but that could also be changed if the board wanted to.
Don't have to go. It's policy. It's a
Well, but we
statute.
have one
Right, okay.
for how, because it's more than just the. Okay. Okay. We ready for new business?
Yeah.
All right. The first point on that is, request that the board have access to the climate survey data. That has been met. Is there anything else on that?
Yeah, I would just caution, the teacher surveys, right? It makes sense that the numbers are low, right? If you got 8 people at Cavendish, that's probably the full staff at Cavendish. The parent surveys at some of the schools where you only have 8 or 10, you know, it makes you wonder about the validity of what we do, or not that any of the stuff is bad. But, you know, usually, in a situation like that, the validity of what the data means is bad.
I have a suggestion. I've read them as well as I could. The topics at the top, the categories are listed in black on dark purple. I, for one, could barely read them. And when you printed them out, it was just one big black line. I'd love to see it printed so that it was obvious what the categories are.
Just, if you have a real computer, just tell it to make a Google Doc. And it'll put it on your hard drive, you can manipulate it in the way you want, so you can change the background and stuff.
But I would really prefer to have a document. I didn't have to do that with just black and white would be very
And you
helpful.
can see everything,
Yeah,
that much easier.
yeah, but
So would the board like a presentation on that data of some sort, or no? You're just kind of wanna look at it
No,
and
I don't-
maybe
Wade's
specific
right,
questions. will
there's
come
so
up.
few. I mean, it's good to hear from people when they answer some of the questions they do. There's a couple students that left very long responses, and it was very nice to hear all the things they had to say. But there's only 3 7th graders that responded, and 4 or 5 8th graders. You know, it doesn't represent everybody, but it's good to see their reaction, their thinking. So,
Was there a digital version of that? I did not see it in the board materials for tonight, so I've not gotten to look at those results.
There's a folder up top that says survey or something,
It was the folder access was emailed.
but in the packet for tonight.
All right, I didn't see it, but I'll check again. And, related to that, I'd also be interested to know what actions are going to be taken to get more survey input the next time around, such as it happens in a student's advisory period and is a scheduled activity during class. For parents, that parents are invited to do it at kiosks set up at celebrations of learning nights or on conference days or other activities that parents are in the building, so they can be provided with a device, reminded about it, and that way we get more input from more stakeholders in the communities.
Great. Right, I think, so the next order of business is a discussion about hazing, harassment, and bullying.
okay, I'll take the lead on that because I asked to have it put on the agenda. That's okay with you guys. I'm really concerned about this because I've heard a lot about it recently. We have a board member here whose own daughter was bullied to the point she was told to kill herself, and she was allowed to go to a different school. Yes.
I would like to correct that statement. So yes, she had that bullying experience in 7th grade.
Okay.
We moved her for her sophomore year. And we moved, our request was for the offerings and the sense of community. She was not currently still being bullied, and my written statement had said that it was for the academic opportunities and for the sense of community.
Okay, but I was here and I heard you
I'm-
say, and I didn't know anything about it until you
So,
mentioned it. And
it's
you
great
told-
that you were
said
here,
that
but
she
again,
had been-
my daughter-
She had been pushed to kill
And
herself.
she was told in 7th grade.
Okay,
I asked in 9th grade for her to be moved, not because she was still being bullied.
okay,
I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying that there's not bullying. I'm just saying,
okay.
please don't refer to my daughter like we're not.
Okay. But we had a student speaking today who is still a student here, who has been bullied in this school. And who had to live with a very lousy word, the N-word, being on her school bus for 2 full years after she reported it. It didn't come down until there was more, it was brought back up years later, and finally it got resolved. My understanding also is that Honore has been bullied very recently in March of this year, and I won't speak any more about that because she didn't mention it. But I believe that that's an issue. And I did read these reports that I saw, but it was kind of hard to figure it out, but there were several reports of students and teachers who didn't feel safe in school. And I was really surprised to see that. I don't know what the cause was. I don't know percentage wise, but I was very surprised to see that, especially teachers. But there were several students who'd said they didn't feel safe in school. I think that the board is mandated by statute to set a policy and to make sure that it is enforced. Now, our policy, I read our policy, it's very scant on what the procedure is, if there is a complaint or how to deal with a complaint. There are 2 small paragraphs about that in a 4-page document, a lot of definitions and a lot of, we don't want this to happen, but very little about what to do with it if it does happen. And I think it's pretty obvious that whatever we're supposed to be doing here hasn't been happening, at least not consistently. Hasn't been consistent enforcement because it's still happening. And it isn't being resolved. Honore is over there nodding because she knows she's still being subjected to this and it isn't being resolved. We have an obligation to make sure that it is. We have a statutory obligation to make sure that it is.
May I just say something? No? Okay.
There's going to be another comment period at the end.
I'll wait.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
So I think that, and we heard Mary Gannon speaking today. It's pretty obvious that we need to have some information, some around to teachers, to admin, to students eventually, but how to deal with this, how to recognize it, what to do about it, and a clear procedure to be followed. We're supposed to set a procedure. The statute says that's part of our job, and to see that the procedure is enforced or put into place. So I think we need more information about this. I'm not trying to start trouble, but I can tell you there has been trouble. I mean, this board and the TRSU was sued in 2017, 2019. They ended up paying $300,000 because 5 sisters were not being properly treated here and the school didn't do anything about it. I'm not saying that's anybody's fault here. I don't know if any of the folks here were even here then, but that happened. If we don't resolve this on our own, by ourselves, we don't address this and come to try and make the situation better so this isn't still happening to our kids. We could get sued again. I don't want that to happen. I really don't want that to happen. And I don't think any of us wants that to happen. We need to take care of it ourselves. We need to learn how to do this. And it is all about bringing in a sense of community. That's the kind of thing that's going to keep bullying from happening. And then if you do run into it, it needs to be recognized, it needs to be addressed, it needs to be stopped. And I think that's not happening. I'm very concerned about that. It's a terrible thing for kids to be bullied. And it has an effect on them personally, it has an effect on their education. It's just something that needs to stop. So I would like to see us invite Mary Gannon to come back and give us the presentation. She's been doing this for 30 years. She knows what she's doing. She knows how to help school boards and schools address this and to resolve it. And it isn't just racial, it's not just sexual, it's bullying in general in all different ways. Kids get bullied for lots of different reasons. And it addresses everything. That we all think of the NAACP as focused on race, but this is focused on all kinds of bullying. And on developing schools where kids are welcome and feel safe and welcome and part of the community. I think that it's something the board really needs to do. And I would like very much to see Mary come back and give us that presentation that she said she could.
And you give it to parents too, because it starts at home.
Oh, yes. No, I agree. That this is the kind of thing that could be available, not just to the board. This could be available to the community. This is for everybody. I mean, she could come here to do this. I don't want to speak for her. She's talking about coming here to give us a presentation. She also does very public presentations. She could do one at the town hall, something like that. But we need to get the process started. I don't want to lay it all out now. I wouldn't even know how it would lay out. But it's something that I think has been going on for too long. It's dangerous to kids and it's a risk for the board of the school as well, legal risk. I'd like to see that ended so we don't have to deal with that. And I think that a really good first step would be to ask Mary to come. Now, I couldn't make that motion before, but since we're meeting in a week, I'd like to make the motion in a week, if I could put it on the agenda too.
So you could make the motion now to invite her to come to a board meeting and do that. So we could actually vote on that right now.
Okay.
About
Are
what.
you going to have discussion before the vote?
If future,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. We don't have a motion yet. I'm
Right,
just
right.
explaining the process. We would then vote on that information, that motion about whether we were going to invite her, and then we would deal with the scheduling.
After the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shayna?
I have a couple things. First of all, thank you, Anna Ray, for coming and speaking on your own behalf. I had a child who was bullied. We had to take her out of her school for several years. So you were very brave and very eloquent. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm also interested, earlier, I think Penny mentioned asking for certain data to be shared with the board. And that is something that would be very helpful to frame the conversation and the work of the board so that before we, put the cart ahead of the horse about, what we're going to do, we have to know what the problem is. Is the problem with the students? Is the problem with the teachers? Is it with the administration? Is it with the policies? And it could be a little bit of everything so that we could formulate an action plan. I am interested to know what the presentation is that we would be listening to, because is it something that's going to help us gather the data and formulate a plan, or is it more of an awareness type of presentation?
Well, I think that I can't answer that question now, but I think Mary could address that in the comments. Since we're meeting again in a week, I'm not asking now that we make a motion to have her come in a week or something to that effect. I think I agree that she probably needs to explain to us what her presentation would be. And then we could address that in a week, because it's not going to happen until June or sometime later anyway.
And getting a data run between now and then would also be helpful of, how many HHBs, how many behavioral threat assessments, how many incidents of bullying, incidents of weapons, incidents of, threats of violence, actual violence. That would be really helpful.
I agree. There's no reason we couldn't get that
Yeah.
and say the June meeting. But I don't should have to wait until we get that. We have enough information to know what's happening here now. And it would be applicable to wherever.
In order to move things forward, couldn't we make a motion, vote if we want to do the presentation or not, and then we schedule some sort of discussion about what it is, and would that be out of order?
Yep, no, that's exactly right. You could make a motion to invite her to speak to the board. You could make a motion to gather data and then revisit the issue. You could make a motion to ask for a written description of what the presentation would be to be considered at a future meeting, any of those things.
I would like to make that motion that we ask for some written information about what the presentation is, and then we can go on it.
Second. So the motion is for a written. Here's what my.
Yeah.
What. Okay, we'll second that.
So Caitlin made a motion that we request a written description of what the presentation would be.
Just like a
And
presentation.
then that we revisit it after we've had a chance to review that information. And seconded it. Is there any discussion?
Could we do both?
Yeah.
Mike?
I'm sorry, do what you said.
Could we do both, do that and, as Shana said, gather some information about exactly what's going on and who, what, when, where, what?
Yeah, so.
You don't have to give any personal details.
No,
No,
but
like,
just-
Generally,
And-
what.
And given our structure, what we should do as a board then is to request that our superintendent gather that information. So we wouldn't be telling the principals what to do. We're asking administration to handle that. So that would be a second motion.
Yeah.
And so we should be discussing this one first. Yes.
If the board wants to know all that, that's fine, but it's not gonna really help Honorary so much or any of the other kids. It's whether Elaine and the principals think the staff needs to hear this, go through training, whatever, which they do every year anyway. And it's, if you guys wanna know, that's great. I've just sat through it like for the last 30 years, so. But if you guys wanna know, but it's not so much us that's gonna change Honorary's life with this information. It's John
Well, I don't think we know yet what the presentation is gonna be.
and
I guess that's what I.
anything that she's gonna bring that's going to help. Would have to be disseminated to the teachers and to the administration, so.
Yeah, and I don't,
It's nice that you guys wanna learn and totally fine with that, it's just. We have to also ask if Elaine and the administration think it's beneficial to pass on.
Elaine, your thoughts there?
And honestly, yes, to give an idea now, this is something that they can discuss about what they
Yeah.
want.
I don't want to get in a
The one
situation where
who
we're
best.
micromanaging, but I don't want the public to think that we don't care.
Yeah, so no, any kind of work is good work, and John and I have talked early on this year and for a while about, programming that needs to be brought in, and John's gonna talk about that, hopefully if it's on the agenda in June. There's some curricular work that's happening around racism with Facing History, Facing Ourselves. There's some HHB work. There's an anonymous reporting mechanism that is being worked on. So there's quite a few pieces there. Only concern I have in the whole discussion is that in the work that I've done, kind of looking at the number of incidents that happen from year to year, it's low. Doesn't mean that they can't be severe, not sure, but it's low. And so in disseminating that sort of data, if it's only one student or two students, you can't share that publicly because people can trace it back. You could do it as a board in executive session. So just, I'll give you that heads up and, you know, if, you know, we're collecting data, if it looks like there's a lot of singletons or things like that, I'll give the boards a heads up, hey, this should be an executive session. Yeah.
So still discussing the motion of, do we want to get this description and then come back to it?
I can amend it. The motion
Okay,
to ask for a written explanation. We can come back and also ask for data, and then we can come back and decide at the next meeting what we want to do.
to me, I think it'd be actually easier to have two motions in this case, only because we're asking different things from different people.
Okay.
And with the data, I also think we would want to specify something about, you know, are we only asking for gathering existing data? Or are we wanting, you know, to gather additional data? A little bit of scope. So is there more discussion on written description and come back to it?
Are we gathering the data to lead our decision on what we want someone to come talk to us about?
No,
What are we gathering the data for?
So we don't have a motion on that yet, but my understanding of what Jerry was saying is we could do both at the same time. And that the data would be about what are the disciplinary numbers, how many people are in school suspension?
Well, and we should be looking at it. You know, we just had a complaint tonight about a teacher, that behavior can trickle into the Kids Act as well.
Let's finish.
Yep.
that.
I'm still, so what are we're obtaining data as its own motion with the intent of.
But we haven't made that motion, so let's wait and worry about that after we finish this.
But what I'm trying to ask is what, with that motion.
So the
There is
current
no
motion,
motion.
the
What did you
current
just-
motion,
I rescind that one.
yeah, the current
I
motion is to ask for a description of what the presentation would be and revisit.
Yes.
A registered presentation because she's here.
Yeah.
The oral one today.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So is there any more discussion of that?
Could we, in the meantime, so, I'm sorry, what was your name? Mary what? Mary
Yeah.
Cannon? With the NAACP, could we, in the interim, I don't know who would want to do this. Could we ask for other people to come in and present? I mean, we had a couple of people come and talk about LGBTQ. I know that there's been some anti-Semitism activity in the school, so maybe having the Anti-Defamation League come in. I think that there's been discussion about religious liberty, like maybe we balance this. If we're gonna have one group come in, let's have multiple groups come in. So I think that would be great.
But Mary isn't here just for the NAACP. She represents all, she has done.
I'd like to hear from more than one
education
person
with
though.
all of them.
Yeah, I'd like
Yes,
to hear from
so,
more than one
but
person.
we
The more
start
the
with
better.
her, then we can bring other people in. We're not gonna hear from 4 people in one meeting, that's for sure.
Why not?
We won't, because we never have time to do that.
Why is that?
Because her presentation, I've spoken to her about it, it's 45 minutes for what she needs to say to us, plus our chance to give questions and answers.
So her
That
presentation
isn't
would be in
gonna
the regular.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking about, yes. But that's what we would be talking about. We need to invite her to do it. I think we need to get started on this now. We can always invite more people. I'm not saying we can't. But she isn't limiting her words to race. She covers discrimination on all bases. Everything you
I think description.
That's why she can describe it.
I think the motion is just to get a written description of
Right.
what Mary is offering for education.
Okay.
And then we can decide if we want the presentation, you know, any input. So I think,
More.
yes,
Okay.
I think
Alright.
that's, am I right?
Thank you. Yes, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion on that?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we will make that request for a description and then come back to it so that we can consider invitations.
So When are we gonna come back to that? Back to that at the next meeting? Or,
Well, she has to get the information first.
right?
So when we get the
Wait on making that decision until we have the information.
I can talk to Wayne about adding it to the agenda. If we have, in the next
Yes.
June
Or, yeah,
second or whatever that.
or
meeting
we
is.
could decide we want to
Right.
gather additional descriptions
Right.
before and discuss them all at once.
Honestly, I think if you give the information, you can't just email out the information. and
Yep.
review it, decide we want more then. It doesn't have to be a meeting.
Absolutely. Okay, so Jerry was also talking about a second motion that has not been made yet, but a direction.
Point of order. Okay, here, can we ask Mary if she can follow through and give us some information and or email to you or Lane so they can disseminate it to us? Because we've been not talking about it. For a couple weeks, and I feel a little weird about that. So, Ms. Stanton, could you assure us that you could get us some information?
I would like to speak in the next public comment. And I can assure you that part of my professional process is that I never just walk in and start presenting. I give a proposal, it's accepted or not accepted. And I get to talk a little bit more about what the breadth and depth is of what I do. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Michael.
Does this cost money?
I will talk about that at public comment. Thanks. Jim.
Sorry. Thank you.
So the second part that we were discussing is, do we want to ask our superintendent to gather additional information or get additional information? Like, is it, like, how specific do you want that to be and what is that information? And what would be done with it? So, one way we could leave it very much in his hands and say, we would like more information about about discipline and reported incidents. Yeah, please.
We could ask that the administration send Lane numbers so that he could put them all together so that if there was a low number, we could avoid his concern of, because we don't know if it's from the elementary school, which elementary school, we don't know if it's from the high school, from the middle school, we don't know. But we could get referrals to the office or referrals from teachers or, mishaps, or we can just go for kids who got put in timeout or detention or got suspended, whether it was ISS or OSS, if you wanted to split that, or we could talk about any reports, right? Not so much investigations, but any reports of HHB, because then we would know how many reports there were. Now, there's a whole process you go through to determine whether it is or not, there's gonna be an investigation, but then that'll make the numbers a little bit more.
Yeah, I think
Less.
reports is what I'm looking for. I'd like to know what things have been reported. Yeah.
And
Is there, I'm not trying to put everything, because we've got backlogs and backlogs, but is there a way as a board we could say, okay, let's think about this, let's be intentional while we are moving to the next, our meeting next week? Think about, because each of us has different ideas about what I'm hearing, each has different ideas of kind of what we'd like to ask Lane to consider compiling. Is there a way we can move this we can take that time to consider and then bring we can work on a better ask, I guess. Unless someone here has a clear idea.
That makes
I have something to add to what you're saying, Anne, that I think would be helpful for Lane and his team and would serve our purpose. And my curiosity would be, let's say, a 5-year, longitudinal data set that includes state reportables. And that's something that the school has to submit to the AOE anyway. And that includes hazing, harassing, and bullying. It includes restraint and seclusion. It includes in-school and out-of-school suspension, criminal and violent acts. I don't think we need to include, child abuse and neglect. but also targeted violence and behavioral threat assessments. So that keeps it very limited, very specific, and it lines up with what we're talking about and looking at it over a 5-year period. And if all of the schools are aggregated together, there probably isn't a cohort with too few students to be able to give us the report. And it would also show a trajectory. Are these incidents increasing, or are they decreasing, or are they stable? And, then Lane and his team would probably also be able to give us a little more information about if there are certain populations that have more incidents than others, where we might need some extra education in the district.
That one, because it also will inform us for our second read on behavioral, that thing to call it, the second read wasn't.
Oh, Katie, sorry.
Okay. So I just happened to look back, January 2023, in principal reports, we used to have disciplinary data. So on that chart, okay, so this is September, October, November, and December, this is 22, obviously. We had teacher referrals, bus suspensions, conferences and warnings, detention, other, in-school detention, and out-of-school detention. And I think that it would be beneficial if we brought that back just going forward so that we have data readily available for our current situation. I do want to gain, information from prior to, and yeah, but going forward, it would be helpful if it was included, so we're kind of up to date on disciplinary actions. For all three schools.
I'd like the idea that this information is required to be reported and there's a record of it. So that's easy. We ought to be able to just get that. How up to date is this record?
They had a report on this about 3 months, 4 months.
So it's publicly available.
It was an HHB, it was a PowerPoint. It was minimal, the cluster, the kids that seemed to be most active. And again, it wasn't all the discipline stuff, because I'm getting confused now whether we're talking HHB or all discipline. But the cluster was in the middle school grades, which is one of the reasons we've been talking about the middle school concept.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know. So let Shannon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that presentation is available.
We can update it, yeah, that should be in the folders that anybody took on. I can remember the date all.
Can I make a motion to add that disciplinary chart back to our principal reports? And also include RVTC disciplinary actions for our students as well.
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table to, yeah, go ahead.
I wonder if we should revisit that chart as an admin team and think about what we're intentionally reporting out. I think elementary school and middle school, high school work very differently. Our reporting system in the elementary school is meant to be supportive and growing opportunities. We don't refer to it as disciplinary. So it's a very different animal. So trying to shoehorn the community that we're creating in the elementary school into a chart would really, I think, be detrimental to what are the systems that we're creating right now. And I can only speak for my own community.
So maybe
I'll
just
amend it and just do the high school and middle school.
or ask for information about behavioral incidents and interventions. Or
I'll just keep the chart
ask
and add
Wayne
RVTC and direct it more towards the middle school and high school. Are you good with that amendment, Lois?
Yeah, I am. I wonder if we, and being an elementary school person, I certainly understand what you're saying. But what might be helpful and interesting is to follow kids and see if it's the same kids who you're working with to change behaviors early on by the same kids that are coming up.
That would not be reportable to the board.
Right, I know. I'm just, but you know what I'm.
I think we as a team have those discussions. And sometimes Kate and I will get on the phone and we'll talk about strategies about students that I've had, that she has. So we do that as professionals. We do follow kids and we're very intentional about the support that we give them as they move on. I'm just concerned about reporting a number that is just gonna be misconstrued when we're creating systems of support.
Okay, I
That
understand.
makes sense, yeah.
So the motion on the table right now is to ask Wayne to direct personnel to add charts on disciplinary actions for the tech school and for Green Mountain Union High School 7th through 12th. Correct. And that has been seconded. Is there any discussion about that? All in favor? Oh, please go ahead.
There seemed to be some distinction between disciplinary and HHB language. So
Very
it
much,
might be
yeah.
good for us to get a better understanding of the terminology. We're making motions and decision over things we don't seem to fully understand.
Oh, I actually understand what I'm asking for, and there's a chart and it's explicit. And it's from previous agendas or not agendas, principal reports in the past. It's nothing that has to do necessarily with HHB specifically. It's literally just disciplinary. Are we getting detentions? How, like, out of school suspension, in school suspension, what kind of things are happening? It's a good snapshot. It's not specifics as to, is this a pattern of HHB? Is it, or discriminatory, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally just what's happening. Are we having a lot of disciplinary action? So I'm very clear on what I'm asking for, and I can send you the thing from the past that we use for disciplinary.
And I think we can also we can also do both to get back to Anne and Sheena and your point, which is in terms of the data that might be related to bullying. We might want to take a week to figure out what specifically we might want to ask for, but that can be separate from this motion.
Yeah, I'm worried we're conflating, and I want to make sure that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to know
These are-
all these disciplinary things, which were related to HHB and which might be just the kids not showing up to class or something like that. Yeah.
But if you just get an accounting of how many HHBs, that automatically tells you what was related to an HHB or not. Because if it qualifies under that definition, then it gets counted.
Right, I get that, but those are historic. I don't think they're done, are they done every month? That's my concern, is that we would get maybe the last 4 years, but we wouldn't get this year.
Talking about different things again.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
talking about-
Can we, point of order then, can we address the?
Yep, so the discussion right now is about getting the disciplinary information and actions.
Right.
Yep. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and Lane, do you need any further information about what that is, or?
No, I think it's,
good.
I think it probably it's a process, you know, if we come back and, you know, it might be interesting people to look at stuff and say, oh, so let's dive a little deeper into here, or we don't really need that. We can just-
I sent that to you.
And then we can also table a request for HHB data to the adjournment.
Do we need a 2/3 majority to get it on the agenda?
We don't, because it's already on the agenda. We're just tabling a part of it to the next one. Okay.
In the folder, so those are, it's really a consent agenda item. So those are the folks that do not have a union to represent them. By law, the board has to approve it, and like I said, they're usually consent agenda. So in determining salary increases, we estimated a 4% increase for staff in terms of the budgeting process. They were higher than that. So everyone on that list either got a 4% increase, or when we went and did the demographics, which is a part of the board's policy, made sure that everybody was bumped up to where they were competitive within the demographic. So if they got more than 4% residents.
Okay, so there are options about this and we could ask for other additional information, but the being a policy governance board, we have asked Lane to do this. So really the only evaluation of this would be, do we think he has done that according to the policy? And if so, then there would be if not, then there would be a motion to bring that up. Otherwise, I think he needs an actual vote on accepting this. Is that right?
Yeah, and there'll be a part of the executive limitation report next year. We'll talk about this. So what I'll do is you'll see in there, I'll have the Vermont Superintendents Association does a survey of all the salaries and all the different job categories that they use to create averages and whatnot. So
I would think that monitoring data should be included with this, correct? For policy governance, we should be seeing monitoring data interpretations of policy that this is referring to.
part of the executive limitations, your policy was voted in, my interpretation was voted in, and it's pretty clear at this point in time. What I'm expected to do.
Thank you.
That was another thing is, I know we have been voting in interpretation. We've been voting in operational definitions. That also isn't supposed to be happening for policy governance because what the board votes on, the board owns, but we can't own operations, right? So still a lot of things that are not very clear about that. I think we are not correctly using policy governance.
I've recommended repeatedly in the agendas for the past couple of months, board education. It's been talked about, but I have not, or don't recall the board actually setting up a time to have those trainings. Especially with the new board.
My understanding was that we were having something.
Talked about it for strategic.
Yeah, and then yes, that's right. That at a longer retreat kind of session, we could be really looking at policy governance in lots of different ways and kind of putting all the pieces back together rather than all the individual pieces. Yeah.
No, that will help for me.
Find out. About needing for the. We call that, it would get it any time.
How do we look for the motion to accept these non-bargaining staff contracts?
If folks decide that they want to make a motion, it would basically just be, I need to accept the non-bargaining contracts and balance back.
Okay, I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
That motion was made by Lois and seconded by Jerry. The motion is to accept the non-bargaining staff contracts in the amounts that were specified. Discussion of that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. The next and last item before public comment. Yes, I'm just trying to think through all the different options here. Is a discussion of the employee request to be released from their contracts. So it is definitely important to describe those requests and what our process is going to be in public session. It is possible for the board to decide to that it meets executive session, qualifies for executive session on the basis of discussing a contract to be able to ask questions at that point. Any decision-making and reasons for that decision still very much need to be in open session. So by having this on the agenda here, just as their employee requests to be released from their contracts. Lane, what in open session should we share about those requests and what the process is? What is it that the board is deciding?
So you have two principals who have 2-year contracts. They are at the end of the first year of that 2-year contract. The two principals are requesting to not have to serve the second year, to have their contracts as a board, remove them from that obligation as of June 30th. of this year.
And so
Deeper discussion would probably be safest for the board to be. Executive session.
Right.
Any question? Was that the warrant prior to?
Once.
Yeah.
Executive
session was?
Yeah.
Where?
Consider executive session. No one we aside. It's here. Discuss.
yeah, it was definitely on some versions.
Yeah, I
And
have
it
a
was
different.
not on the, not on the one in the packet, but I think it is on the one that was warned.
This is one, but yeah, this is the original one that was, I didn't print out the new one. This is the original one I printed out. That was warned. It said it was warned. And it says it's section C3. I consider executive session under 1 VSA 313A3 to discuss, quote, the appointment, employment, or evaluation of a public officer or employee.
Yeah, this one was adjusted a number, so. The other thing that you could do, just to make sure that it's clear, is the 2/3 vote. Executive session.
Okay.
Does this help? I'm gonna say. Executive session.
It does. So I think, yes, so we should add it to the agenda to consider going into executive session. And we would also need a vote about whether this meets executive session
Yes.
requirements. So the first motion we would need now is to add an item to the agenda. And you could read those pieces that we would be adding.
Okay.
This would need to be seconded and we would need a 2/3 vote to add it to the agenda.
I move that we add to the agenda 2 items. The first is, quote, consider executive session under 1 VSA section 313A3 to discuss the appointment, employment, or evaluation of a public officer or employee. And then second part is to return to open session to make the decision and explain the reasons.
Okay, so this is about adding those 2 items to the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now under this topic of employee requests to be released from their contracts, we have the additions to the agenda of considering executive session. Anne, go ahead.
I'm reading mine.
Yep.
I moved to find that, no, is this right? I moved to find that, no, somebody else do it.
You can,
So it says, what's the section number on it? Because if it's not 1, you don't have to do the first part.
it is not.
So then it's probably just. So in this case, it's 1.
313A1.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
So that one you don't have to do the first part. This one is.
Yeah, I move that we, do you want?
Go for it.
Okay, I move that we enter executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, or evaluation of a public officer or employee.
Jerry has seconded that. There are 2 other pieces we need on this. One is if it's discussion of contracts, my understanding is it has to be specific individuals. Do those individuals have to be named?
Just, Emma and Kate.
Emma Beckwith and
No.
Kate Lee.
Emma Vestola.
Right, that's a graduate. student. Emma Vestola and Kate Leahy. The other thing we would need to consider before going into executive session is who we are inviting into that executive session, in addition to board.
Anybody?
Blaine.
Blaine?
Lane, yes, I'd like to invite Lane.
Oh, okay. So the motion on the table is to enter executive session for discussion of contracts for these two principals who have requested being released from the second year of their contract. And invite Lane. And that has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are entering executive session. So.
Recording is on, and folks are coming back in.
Oh, there's too much.
A lot of people. Yeah, okay. Oh, but not everybody. It doesn't have any. Oh, sure.
No, so, but. Yes.
Thank you. It's so old. Yeah. Very old, like, literally, that's 25 years. Oh, that was bad. Yeah, and I look at this, see all the bugs.
On this topic, discussion, we have just exited the executive
So
session.
before we talk about the results of our conversation, I would just like to say thank you to both Kate and Emma for the excellent job that they've done for the day.
I move that, having come out of executive session, we approve the request of Emma Vestola to be released from her contract.
Second.
Any discussion? So one of the reasons that we might want to do this is to support our principals and staff in the professional development that they are wanting. And just wish you all the best. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so Emma Vestola has been released from the second year of her principal's contract. And we will miss you.
And I also move that we approve the request of Kate Leith to be released from her contract.
Second that.
And any discussion? We will miss you very, very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have also released that contract.
So we need to make sure that, you know, we want him to propose positions as soon as possible.
Yeah, so that statement was, and we will want those positions and figuring out what happens next to happen as soon as possible. Thank you. Okay. We have our last public comment of this part of the meeting, and then we will adjourn to the other half of it.
It's me again. Do I need to write my name again?
Put a mark
second
next
time?
to it that's second to. That way we'll get it right in the minutes.
Just where she's writing up the minutes, she needs to
I wrote two
spoke a
this time,
second
I know.
time.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to say that, you're asking about reports on cases that have been reported. I'm just gonna say from experience with Honore, kids are not reporting. They are not reporting because nothing gets done. So I don't think your numbers are gonna be accurate. My point. Another thing I want to say is we had a meeting scheduled with Lane back in September. The end of September, to try to work on this. So here I am, he didn't want to meet, he wanted to meet through Zoom. We said that's not acceptable, felt that it's more important to meet in person. So it put us off another month. And like I said, here we are again. So there's been I've asked for help right here and had problems getting help. So I just want you to know I have tried. And the other thing I want to say is, as a community member, as a grandparent, sitting here watching the way this board interacts is troubling. It's very hard to watch. People leaving at 8 o'clock, rolling their eyes at other people talking. That's horrible. That's rude. And I think you really need to look at that. You want people to come and people to participate. But when you act like that, it's hard for us to come and participate. It's hard to watch. And that's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
And I wanted to follow up on a couple things.
Just state your
Speaking,
name.
oh, Anne Lamb, sorry. Speaking to that, I agree. I find it very off-putting and troubling to sit and watch the body language, watch the eye rolling, hear the tone of voice that is so disrespectful to other members who are bringing their opinion to the table. And unfortunately, I'll say it clearly, the two that left are the ones who are doing it most clearly. And it is disruptive to what you are trying to achieve here. And you were elected, put in here by the community members. And you should have the decency to be respectful to one another. Also, in speaking to the survey, what I heard was we didn't get enough response, so we're going to kick it down the road till, I don't know, next year, another time. And yet we've had people talking about a culture that is unhealthy. And a climate survey is incredibly important. And so the question shouldn't be, when are we going to do it again? It is, how are we going to lay this out, roll this out now, and to get more responses? It is vitally important to know what the climate is. And it appears that it is very broken. And to continue this is going to be disruptive to maintaining employees, recruiting employees, and the health of our students, which is the most important. And my last comment is following up on what I said at the beginning. We have the opportunity with all the changes that are happening across school districts and in the state to be the beacon on the hill. People are looking for a healthy place to send their children to go to school. And unfortunately, in the state of Vermont, there don't seem to be a lot of healthy schools. So you have the choice right now to do a culture change, work with staff, work with administration in order to create an environment where people want to come to the school, which is going to increase a lot of income tax. It's going to increase just our overall community, and it's everything that we're looking for. And we have the infrastructure to do it, and we need to change the culture. And everyone needs to be on board for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, online, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I guess my comment right now is about the climate survey. I was disappointed to see that it's shared as raw data. A survey that you wonder why many may not have filled it out. The identifying information, the first 4 questions are asking the school, how long you've taught, what positions. In other years, we've done this climate survey. I don't believe it was shared in raw data, and it was aggregated and presented. And I'm just disappointed that the data was shared with that. And I worry the impact that'll have on my teachers tomorrow when they realize that that kind of data is out there to the public without any, which feels like no forethought, but it's important stuff. And it's really important. And I know I was one who asked Lane when it was going to happen, because I think it's important to give just as our students a voice, our staff and community a voice. But it just, it's more, that information is more just like the data around discipline and bullying and harassment. I think it's important data to share, but I would ask the board with confidentiality, because there were a couple times when comments about students could have gone really south fast. And we're a small community, so the data is certainly important for the board, not to hide it and whatever it is, but to just take care to remember that we're talking about children who look to the adults as role models, and to protect them in any role that they have connected with the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Just state your name again. Yeah, thank you, but I don't get it.
No, not you can put that like that. So Mary Gannon, so a couple things. I'm trying to organize my thoughts here, and I know it's late, and I am disappointed that two of the two board members have left, because I feel like some of the questions or points they were raising are I'm hoping I can respond to. So I hope that they'll find this information at some point. I think what is clear is that we all agree what we want for our kids. You know, I think we would all agree that we want our kids to feel safe. We want them to feel welcomed. We want them to feel included. I don't think that's, I mean, that's usually why people run for support, is that they care about the kids in the community. And so even though, as I was observing you tonight, like there is potentially dissenting opinions, and maybe even different stylistic ways of how you interact with each other, like there's a dynamic here. So I think the public is naming that, and I would name it also as somebody who spends a lot of time facilitating boards. And I think that could be fine, because, diversity shows up in a lot of different ways. And then people's styles, some people are hanging back more, some people are in. So as part of my proposal, Michael, that you were asking for earlier, thank you for letting me speak to that myself. I would offer two thoughts, two ideas. And this is based on what I've done before, and I will be happy to write this up and put it into a proposal for you so you can decide whether this is useful for you or not. I can also give you some references. I've worked with Brattleboro, I've worked with Windsor, I've worked with Burlington, I've worked with White River Junction. I think I have some credibility. So one thing that I like to do, and again, I think the question becomes, whether it's in public session or is it in some kind of a retreat, right? Is to give you all some time to build a little bit of cohesion. This is a new board. You have some new people. You have some folks who have been here for a while, who actually have some wisdom about how to do this. I've never been on a school board. It seems really challenging, particularly right now, but also just understanding statute and policy and all of that. And I think you have a great leader in Lisa, but I would encourage you to think about taking some time with me, or maybe you can just do this yourselves, to figure out how you're going to build some cohesion. So like, how are you going to work together? Because you're so public facing, and the public is looking for like some norms in some ways, that they see that there's a culture here that is what you're asking of the children and you're asking of the staff, right? So that would be something that I think I could weave into a conversation, which also takes us into these very difficult conversations about hazing, harassment, and bullying. I want to say at the outset, for me, there's a lot of people doing this work across the state. My style is a little bit different. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to shame and blame people. This is really hard. The culture that we live in is exacerbating this. Kids are exposed to things that we don't have control over. You all know the statistics, and you all know what the culture is bringing right now. This is a nationwide and a statewide dilemma. And I was appreciating what you said earlier, that you, along with other school districts, I would invite you to think about, how can you be that beacon? I worked in White River for 5 years, and now they're really out in front. It's not perfect. it's never going to be perfect. We're not going to erase discrimination. We're not going to, I'm sorry to say it, like, and I was hoping it would happen before I left the planet, but it's not. But there's ways that you can be, as a board, modeling what it means to be proactive. What are the tools that your employees need that I think they're asking for so that they can actually address it when it's happening? That's foundational to how you build a culture where when something's happening in a minute in a classroom, it doesn't have to go to an incident report because the teacher knows how to figure out how to work with it. These are really hard tools. It's not getting taught in colleges of education. I can tell you that right now. And so it is sort of on us to figure out what is it that our staff needs. And I know there's good initiatives. I've talked to, John about this. There's initiatives that have been happening, but I think there's something about how do you build it into the fabric of what you're asking your staff to do. And it's really about like a lens. We do this at the legislative level. We have something called the equity protocol, and there's 5 questions, and they keep them in front of themselves all the time when they're thinking about how they're crafting policy. Teachers can do the same thing. What are the things I need to be thinking about in my classroom? Who's in my classroom? Once they start to gather some of that data themselves, and I'm sure some of them are doing that, but if they're not, then it will really help them think about what happens when a critical incident goes down. It doesn't have to go to the level of an HHB report. So maybe some of that is happening here. I mean, maybe that's why Superintendent Millington is saying, like, we haven't seen a lot of incident reports. So I would also agree, and I'm saying this statewide, kids aren't reporting because they feel like adults are not responding. Kids aren't reporting because it's scary. Kids aren't reporting because they're afraid of retribution. So there's a lot of reasons around that. And that would be, a longer conversation about what an actual protocol, could look like. So I will end with, Lisa, thank you for giving me all this time. Is that we are all in a learning curve on this. This is a learning curve for everybody. I'm learning. I'm still trying to figure out how to talk about this and do this work in a way that, like, I have some areas of strength, but other areas of discrimination are not my strength. If we all can decide, superintendent, the leadership team, school board members, as we're asking the community and the kids and the students to do, to be learners in this, I think it sets a different tone for why there can be some value to this. And some of us are further along on the curve than others, right? So we need to give people grace around that. I think this is really important for the public to hear. For me, this is not about politics. It is not about politics. It's become politicized. And this has been happening for decades now. When I went to graduate school, my PhD is in a program called Social Justice Education, which is about looking at issues of justice and equity in schools. We didn't call it DEI. I didn't even know what that was until I got to Vermont. That's what everybody was calling it. This is about kids' ability to succeed and what are all the things that they need in order to do that. And so I want to say at the outset, and some community members might think I'm hiding it out or we're all hiding out, but we're not. This is not about politics for me. You might not agree that the queer pride flag should be flown. You may feel like your kid, as that father called in tonight and said, I feel like my kid's getting excluded for whatever reasons that might be. That kid has a right to also be included in the classroom. And that child also needs to learn whatever behaviors he or she or they are using are performing that are not okay. And that's what the work is really about. We got to let all these kids are here and the staff with all their different political views and viewpoints, and we have to figure out how to work with them. And the two last things I'll say is data is so critical. Thank you, Shanna, for bringing that up. There's ways to disaggregate that data. Like I would agree with Katie. I think it's wonderful to think about what are some other frames that you can bring in to collect some stuff around behavior. Can we disaggregate that by race? Can we disaggregate that by gender? Can we disaggregate that by IEPs? So then we know that there might be some root cause there that has to do with an issue of discrimination. It might not, but it would be good to know that. It would make the job easier, I think, for all of you. And finally, to your question, Jerry, my willingness to come in here and do a presentation for all is I don't charge for that. What I will charge for is if we go a step further and really think about how to support the board in supporting the leadership teams in the schools around how they take this further, or professional development, that would be different. But for me to come in and do a session, whether it's in executive or it's public, And I, again, Penny, I appreciate you speaking on my behalf, but I can do 20 minutes, I can do 35 minutes. It doesn't have to be that long. This is not rocket science, friends. This is not. It's hard because it's uncomfortable. And that's what we push up against sometimes, is our discomfort around talking about things that we don't feel like we understand. We've got to figure out how to model it better so that our kids are seeing that we know how to do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Honorary Jason again. And I just want to say that we had came here for help for the school because it's important to us. And I was pretty disappointed to come up here with no attention from my own superintendent, him shaking his head when I'm asking for help. And I also want to say how it's also kind of like nerve-wracking to come up here with being all the people and it already happening and us trying for it to work and get fixed and it not happening. And the problem with that is the education. We need to be able to talk about it like how Mary was just saying. And as we are, it's not getting figured out. That people think it's funny to joke about that. They laugh about it. And it's not of laughing matter at all. And I think that we need to start questioning and we need to figure out a way for them to understand what they're saying, how harmful it is, what it means, and all the background on that. Because they're clearly not educated and they don't sound like it. Feel uneducated because it's still a problem. And thank you guys for listening if you did listen.
And thank you.
I know it's late. And I know you don't really want to listen to one more person talk. But I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm Lauren Fearman. And just there were a couple of things. One is, I think it's important for all of you to have clear understanding about what happens in the school around these issues. It's important to get further education about how to make it better. There are certainly problems here, everywhere. But if you don't know, and some of you do because you've worked here or you've been around for a while, if you don't know what the HHB protocols and instruction that happens every year in the school is, you should know that before you're getting more information about how to improve it. The fact that it exists certainly doesn't mean that it's being done as well as it could be. It certainly doesn't mean that it's being as effective as it could be. But I don't want the information out there that there's nothing happening. We have always followed, and I know continue to follow, the state requirements. The policies are the state policies. And while the protocol that you see in that folder is relatively brief, the pages that all of the administrators have, the tool book that they all have for handling HHV problems is beyond volumes. And most people, again, not everybody, but most people are working really hard to try to make it be as good as possible. And when they hear, as they do, that it's failed, it guts them and they want to fix it. And I know that there are people who have met that for you, and I'm so sorry that it isn't everybody all the time. The other thing I wanted to say is 16 VSA 731 subsection A, subsection 1 is the statute that governs appointment when you have somebody new being appointed because it wasn't filled in an election. It does not require a vote. It requires appointment. And it's very clear that what is required is that this board appoints someone. Now, your policies may be to take a vote, and you absolutely have to be consistent. If you say you're going to do it with a vote, you should do it with a vote. But I'll also mention if somebody wants to go back into the minutes from, I don't know when you were first appointed to the board, Lisa. Of what year that was.
There wasn't a vote.
There was absolutely no vote. The then chair of the board decided not to have one and just told the board that you were being appointed. So if that's a problem, boy, there's some other things to correct. I would also throw out there just as a possibility, one of the things that happens when there is a mistake in procedure is that you can cure that by voting again. And it's wonderful to go through and talk about what you think the problems were. You can also decide, well, let's take a minute. I would like to move that we make sure that we are appointing so-and-so to this seat, just in case we didn't do it right. Is there a second? All in favor? That you can cure those problems by doing something like that. That's my understanding of it. The other thing I want to commend this board for is doing what feels impossible, which is when people stand here and say things that are upsetting, and when they make accusations about your staff, but when people are saying incredibly upsetting things, to be able to, for the most part, be showing a sympathetic face, but not stand up and say, I want to, because your rules are clear. You are not supposed to respond. And I know but those are your rules. That's what you're doing. I know it's hard. And I know people watching frequently think that it means that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you don't. I know it doesn't mean that you don't care. It means you're following your rules, which is why you're not going to say thank you to me for this, because you're not going to respond to it. And then I do want to make sure to say thank you to both Em and Kate, who I worked with while I was still in a position to be supervising. They are outstanding educators, and I wish them all the best. And I'm sorry that this district is going to lose them. I am glad that they're going to remain in education and do good things. And then the final thing is, as you talked about previously, disciplinary and HHB data was shared as a matter of course every month. I will mention that there was an assistant principal who you may all know, who for 12 years created that data, made sure that it was available to everybody. It should still be available. And certainly before you're making decisions about what you need to do, being able to look at that would be important. Thank you.
Other public comment at this point? This is also the time for board comment. Please, Erin.
I can only speak for myself, but I don't think anyone here would disagree that running late for public comment is never a problem, in my opinion. And if we're gonna go late, that's what I want to go late on, is hearing from public and being given an opportunity to listen. And in closing, Honor Ray, thank you. You're incredibly brave. You are incredibly kind, and I appreciate what you've shared with us this evening. It's very brave. And thank you everyone for your comments this evening. They've been very eye-opening.
Second, Ann. Right, and just a real quick reminder that with the board, our focus.
Ask everybody, or we
What's
raise
that?
our hands? I thought you would go around and ask everybody.
Oh, no, I did that just because she had her hand raised, but go ahead.
I think we should clarify what's written on the agenda. It says that we can't comment on what people say. There's no time limit, so it makes it seem like we can't ever comment on it. When people speak, you say thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Which is,
but I want
which
to
is
keep
against the
doing that.
rules. You can't comment. And Ann just commented. And Penny backed it. What's the time limit? So I'm just saying at some point, maybe it gets on the agenda. We can't talk about it when they speak that night, ever, when. I'm asking because I don't know, and that's what that says. So to me, it's ever.
Well, it's we're at number 8, and it says public and board comments. So in that case.
Right, but it also says we can't respond
Right.
During on items raised and on items raised during public.
It says we can't respond
So,
or act on them.
so
We just
the,
responded to them.
one of the major pieces is the board is responsible for governing itself. And that was actually what I
I'm
was.
just
gonna
asking
say.
for clarification.
Our
It
three
says we
things
can't.
are communicate with the broader community, be Lane's supervision boss, give him input anyway, and govern ourselves. So we get to decide on this. So the part about not responding is because we have wanted to, not get into a back and forth, because if we then discuss something in the meeting that isn't on the agenda, that is an open meeting law issue. But like, we get to decide these rules. Lauren is completely right, it is our rules, but we are deciding them. So
I'm
if,
just saying, at the select board, we always tell people if we're going to say something or respond to it, I think with the next week, because we can put it on the agenda.
And the word raised is important.
So just clarify what it means. Because it says we can't. And the way it's worded, it means ever. So
I get what you're
just
saying.
clarify in the statement.
I'm
We will
putting
not
it,
comment tonight. If we need to, we'll put it on the agenda, whatever you want to do. But I want something a little bit more.
but what I'm doing is putting it back on you. It is not whatever I want to do, it is what the board wants to do. So it's a board rule, not my rule.
It's not something the board will part of Robert's rules, isn't it?
No, it's open meeting law adjacent.
My understanding, I may be wrong on this, correct. But my understanding of not commenting is that when we have somebody making a public comment, we don't respond then. We don't say, well, we don't agree with you, or we
Right,
do
so
agree with
we're
you.
doing it an hour
We
later,
just
or 5
listen.
minutes later, that's okay.
But then when we get to make board comment, we can make board comment on anything. It's a comment. It's not part of the agenda. It's not something that we have to put on here.
Have it
It's a
say we
comment.
can't comment in the moment.
He's just saying because it
Right.
specifically says that.
Well, at the time, but it does say, it says the board welcomes input from those attending and persons
Yeah,
online.
see, you
but
have
also
the, you
board.
have the version that I suggested,
None of us
which
have.
was a change.
I can find clarity in the words. I think it's
Yeah.
a discussion that
But-
we should make a decision.
Yeah, and maybe we should.
And I think that was a key word too next time.
But is my interpretation correct? Can we do that?
Talk about it
That we,
after.
yeah, we can't engage. That's the point. You cannot have back and forth in the middle of a meeting. But we can listen to the comments, and then when it's our turn, when we can make board comment as well, then we could respond, but we're not gonna, even then, we're not gonna get back and forth.
Right, but I think that's your interpretation. of
It
it.
is, and that's why I'm asking whether that's.
Yeah. I don't think we know. I think we have to decide.
That's exactly right.
So can we put that on the agenda to decide how to deal with that later? 'Cause we should know.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
and the board governing itself, yes. So, just before anybody, so if one were to make a motion about adjourning, it's important to make sure that you adjourn to the next meeting.
Okay.
So this is an official pause in this meeting. It is not an end to this meeting.
Then I'll make a motion that for now we adjourn this meeting until we meet again on
May 28th
May 28th.
at 6 p.m. here.
1800 hours. Yes.
I second that.
And that was seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all, and thanks for your flexibility as we figured this out.
I know so.